this is Laura Ollinger from the Positively Healthy Mom, and welcome to the Zingo Network, Spanglish World and Her Networks on Zingo channels 250 and 251. And make sure you download the Zingo app, rate it, and leave a comment while you're there. And remember that Zingo apps are available on iOS and Android devices. The app is free, and you can find it on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV sticks, Roku and Roku sticks, and all smart TVs 2016 and moving forward. So today we have Kim Brundage. Oh, I messed it up. I swore I wasn't going to get my head. Kim Brundage as my guest. Welcome, Kim. Say hello to our audience.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so excited to be here today.
Yeah, so I brought you on because you are an amazing photographer, which is in its own right, a big conversation. But I love what you have done with your career because you kind of combined your personal life and your professional life to truly create your passion of what you love to do. So can you tell us kind of the backstory and kind of what you're doing now?
So the backstory on the photography journey portion of it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I always wanted to be a photographer since I was in 7th grade, and a lot was going on in my family, and I just squelched it. And then as I got older, I squelched it, and but you could see in my life, like things I was buying photography related, and I was really, it was always in me. And then when my son was born in 2001, then I finally had a muse that I could play with anytime I wanted. So that really skyrocketed my passion for photography.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I was growing, I was in the corporate world doing marketing and branding. And then I decided I wanted to combine my love of photography with marketing and branding and helping entrepreneurs like yourself shine and make that great first impression and have people magnetized towards your brand, seeing your visuals because they're so important. We're in such a virtual world and we're not able to meet everyone, and we're also able to reach out and expand internationally now.
So true. So you love to just capture, especially female entrepreneurs, presenting themselves in their best light to kind of market themselves and their businesses and their services to the world. And that's super exciting. You must meet all sorts of neat ladies and hear all about their businesses. What's the most fun part of that?
The most fun of that is just being around strong women. Like that's, I love that, seeing women go for their dreams and their goals and making such a positive difference in our community like you are. I mean, that's just so inspirational. And we need people like yourself to share that positivity. I mean, I love your tagline. I was like, there's no manual for the hardest job in the world. And it's so true.
Yes. Thank you. I know, right? There isn't, like, we're all just figuring this out and together, and we have to support each other as women, as moms, right? To like raise each other up and be encouraging and supportive. And the topic that I'm so excited to bring up today is one of inner and outer beauty and the confidence that comes kind of from the inside, but also outside. And so can you share a little bit more about what you've been doing with that?
Yeah, and that's part of that personal journey I think you were getting to. And now I'm going to bring it up after they have that background. But I didn't see my beauty until I photographed myself. And one day I locked the door to the studio, and I didn't tell my husband or son what I was doing. And I didn't grow up understanding about angles and lighting. Obviously, most of us don't. And I didn't like any pictures of myself. So I was like, all right, I'm going to practice posing and lighting, and I'm going to delete all the images. Like, I was just not going to tell anyone, delete all the images, and hopefully learn something from my experience. And what I learned was so profound. I finally saw my beauty, and I saw some images off the back of the camera, and then I was like, oh my goodness. And I went and pulled them up on the computer to see them on the big screen. And then I called in my husband and my son. I'm like, look at this. They're like, oh my gosh, you look great. And they were so positive, enthusiastic. And of course, my husband told me I was beautiful, but I didn't really believe him because I didn't see it for myself. And that's another further light that's went off. Aha moment was like, I know there's so many women that feel not the beauty standard that we're all presented with. And so what can I do to show them their beauty and boost their confidence so that they can go out and get their dreams and goals? Because when you have great images of yourself, then you put yourself out there more and take more steps to get to your goals and dreams. It's such a ripple effect.
Yeah, that's actually so true. So in a way, part of your mission on helping women is really helping them serve their audiences to the best of their ability, because they wouldn't be able to reach those people if they weren't willing to put themselves out there. And in order to
Right.
put themselves out there, they're needing to feel confident and feel beautiful, because it is a big
Yes.
deal to take a risk. Like, I remember
Right.
when I first started doing all my social media marketing, it was
Mhm.
scary. I was like, okay,
Yes.
I'm pressing,
Right.
submit or
Yes.
whatever the button, post. And I was like, oh gosh, I hope people don't judge me.
Yes.
It has taken me a
Right.
while to really build that
Mhm.
muscle and that confidence up. And even if there's, I do have typos or errors every once in a while, or if there's
Right.
something perfect, I just have to be,
Right.
it's okay, right? I have to really
Right.
will to roll with it and go with it, because
Yeah.
overall, the message is there of what
You're
I'm doing.
human. Right.
Right,
Right.
exactly, right? It doesn't have to be this standard of everything is perfect all the time for everything, because then it's not
Right.
real.
Right.
It's fun. Nobody wants to talk to some robot, right? Like, we want to.
No, exactly.
I know. Even that's why I was laughing, because I don't know if you saw my cat. She likes to
Yeah.
jump up during
Yeah.
my shows, and it's like, some people might be like, "Oh, get that cat out of here," but I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
that's my cat. She's here. She's
Right.
my
Right.
right." And
She lives here. Right.
so,
Yeah, and I think you brought up the topic too of but just how vulnerable it is. And so it's vulnerable to have your picture taken. It's vulnerable to put yourself out there. And it does take an act of courage. And so I really work hard to see what I can do to empower people. And so that's why I include services to help them feel and look their best when they show up. So it's not just about the photography, and so that makes a really good difference. But
mhm.
I'm so glad that you put yourself out there. It
Yeah,
took a
me
lot
too.
of courage.
Me too. I
Yeah.
mean, I knew I had to do it because I can't reach my audience unless I did it. So that was just the hurdle.
Right.
And anybody who's listening today, it's funny, I hadn't thought of that's where this conversation would go, but maybe they're on the
Yeah.
verge of starting a
Yeah.
business, or just wanting a mission that's, a charitable mission, right? A lot of I
Yes.
have friends who help with all sorts of nonprofits, and even that is a
Mhm.
risk. And so being
Right.
able to just, press that post button and feel good and feel okay about it. I love that you have been part of that process for so many women. And so what are, when they do come to see you for the photography part, how do
Mhm.
you help them kind of, be vulnerable and open up, but like kind of radiate confidence? Like, is there anything that you do in
Yeah.
this?
I do. So my first basis, but based on my marketing background, is like, let's set your intention. What are your 3 to 5 words that you want to convey with your images? And then I also have that day they get camera ready makeup and hairstyling, and then wardrobe styling support ahead of time too. And we have
Mm,
a full pre-branding consult where we really dive deep and we talk about expectations and how it's going to flow and what they need to bring. And there's a lot of preparation to it. It's not just show up
right.
and then try to smile. And a lot of people will do 5 outfits, but the first outfit they're a little nervous about. And then by the second outfit, they're like, okay, this is just my new friend Kim, and that we're just having a conversation. She happens to have a camera. And that's when, you really want to let that guard down and really come through your authentic self so people can see that and feel that. And the best compliments I get about my work is we don't know the people in your images, but we feel like we do because of their personality shines through.
Oh, that is quite
Yeah.
a compliment. Yeah. I mean, that's
Hmm.
speaking volumes to what you are doing to bring them alive off the camera, off the screen,
Yeah.
and make them
Yeah.
real. That's
Right.
really that's really cool. So, my next question is, what would you okay, so when you went in and did that photo, locked yourself and did your photo session and, played around until you found how you felt beautiful. How old do you remember about like how old were you when that happened?
I was 44. It wasn't that long ago. It's like, so I was, yeah, I mean, I've been running around. I mean, I had a family that was really hard on me and, would point out those flaws consistently. And so I didn't feel good about myself and didn't think I was beautiful or attractive and didn't know my own power. Like, your 20s are supposed to be your top of your game as far as your beauty standards
Yeah.
go. And I didn't know the power I had. Um, and so I bought into that. My mom, when I turned 39, I was divorced and a single, and she was like, "You are never going to find a man, so you need breast augmentation, and
Oh, wow.
I'm going to pay for it." And so it was just heartbreaking to like have your family not see your beauty either, and not accept you for how you were. And I didn't get that breast augmentation. I'm
Okay.
glad I didn't. That wasn't the right decision for me, but
Mhm.
that was, I found that to be really hurtful.
Right.
Um,
I think that that's what it would take for you to have value to
right,
find a man, right? Like that's
right.
what you needed, right? So
Hmm.
maybe, I always try to give people even some very strange things the benefit of the doubt, right? As far as like
Right,
the intention was there, right? Like the intention
right,
was, I love my daughter. I want her to be happy. I
right,
want her to find what she's looking for, right? So I
right,
don't
right.
immediately jump all over that and say, oh my gosh,
Yeah,
what a woman, right? I don't want to go there, but like, right, the intention
right.
of love was probably there. It's just that the
Yeah,
way that it was expressed was that you need to
right.
do yourself so that you will be worthy of a man who loves you.
Right.
That's
And
the
the ironic part about all of that too is that I have a husband. I found a man soon after that absolutely loves and adores me for how I am and celebrates me for how I am. Like there's no like, oh, you could be better if you did this. None of that, it just like, and we're crazy about each other, and we just really enjoy each other. So that is so affirming to me that you can be authentic to yourself, and of course find someone that will value that also.
Yes, I think that's great because you probably would not have attracted him if you had, taken your mom up on that offer. You would have been giving out some type of a different energetic vibe, and that
Yes.
thing to
Yeah.
him. And so then you were showing up as like, I'm gonna stay true to myself. I'm gonna be authentic
Yes.
to what I want for my body. And that probably sent a different signal that he was able to pick up on and be like, wow, this girl is really natural and really beautiful and really
Yeah.
confident and all those things. And that probably
Right.
what really aligned you. So, because,
Yeah.
there are probably lots of moms on tons of moms have lots of, things done to their body. So it's not that
Right.
that's it's just that what is
Right.
right for you, right? Maybe
Right.
that
Right.
a woman needs to feel beautiful. And for you, that wasn't the
Right.
case. So,
Right.
I'm happy that you stuck true and
Exactly.
had your boundary with your mom.
Yeah.
And that's an important part, that boundary. But the part that I'm kind of like really fascinated by, and I have my own version of this story as well. Like, I think we
Yeah.
all echo as women
Yes.
each other a lot with this, but that you were
Right.
44 when you
Right.
figured out that you were beautiful. And so think of
Yeah.
all the years that didn't,
Yeah.
right? And so
Right.
that's part of when I coach teenagers,
Mhm.
sometimes especially when they're stuck and it's
Yes.
any type of, not just physical stuff, but just any type of confidence. It could be body image, it could be
Yep.
just self-certainty, being able to get up and give
Yes.
a presentation in front of class, anything like
Right.
that. And I
Right.
say there are two ways that this could go. I say you
Yes.
could either continue to doubt yourself for the rest of your life, and
Yes.
then when you're 80 you decide you're good enough, but by then you
Right.
won't have the opportunity to do a lot of these things.
Right.
Or you could just make that choice now and really
Mhm.
enjoy that decision that you've made to just love yourself, have self-certainty, self-confidence, self-worth, whatever it is that they're specifically,
Yes.
and then
Right.
use all those years that they've got ahead of
Mhm.
them. I try to say, like, hey, take it from a wise lady. Like I was there. I was a middle
Right.
schooler and a high schooler
Yes.
who didn't have confidence.
Yeah.
I was even in my 20s. I
Right.
didn't have confidence. That's part of my
Right.
story. And
Yeah.
it has taken me also into my 40s. It's kind of interesting that we both
Yeah.
like have that epiphany or aha moment that like this is the
Yeah.
time that we're ready to shine, but it didn't need to take,
Right.
right?
No, right. Didn't like, so that's the other thing I do is I give young girls body image and confidence talks.
Mm.
And I'm very passionate about that because what I found too is that, when a little girl is 2, 3, 4, she's cute, right? I mean, she gets so many compliments and so much attention. But at some point that fades off. And then when we hit puberty, then the criticism really comes out. Like,
Mhm.
how are you developing? And oh, look at those hips and thighs and stuff like that. And you get really self conscious, and that age is self conscious, anyways.
Mhm.
And so I talk about, what influences us, what has gotten us here, and how we feel. And just because we're teenagers, it doesn't stop. My girlfriend, she has twins, and one of her twins reached out. She's 21 years old, and she wants to use anti-aging cream already because she's inundated with all these messages that, oh, I might have a wrinkle here, and we need to use this cream to counteract that. And, even, our age, we're getting a lot of anti-aging messages, and, our hair is supposed to shine and our face is supposed to glow, and we're supposed to be thin, but not too thin. And, it's just like all these messages. And so, unless you know how to counteract those, then you just get inundated with how you're just never good enough.
Yes. Did you happen to see, I know you have a son, but did you happen to see the Barbie movie?
Yes, I did see the Barbie movie. Yes.
Oh, good, because
Yes.
that was kind of like the climax of the movie was when
Yeah.
the character gives that speech about, look, if Barbie doesn't feel good enough, then how are the rest of us regular women supposed to feel good enough?
Right. Right. Exactly.
We are all failing. And I
Yeah.
loved, it just felt so empowering for women everywhere. Like, we're supposed to be, but not this, and this, and this, but not that. And
Right.
we have to be confident, but not obnoxious or braggadocious.
Right.
It's like, where
Yes.
can we win? We can't win, it
Right.
feels like. And so I love
Right.
that this has been part of your work, is like making the message that we can
Mhm.
win. So when you talk
Right.
to your teenage audiences, because you give these
Yes.
presentations, which I
Mhm.
absolutely think is phenomenal. What is kind of some of the messaging that you bring? So you talk about the sources like society or
Right.
magazines or social media
Social
specifically.
media, right.
Explain that,
Yep.
and then
My
what else is the
friends.
process with them?
Yeah, and it's like all what we surround ourselves with, right? Like if I'm always looking on social media and I see stick thin models that have been photoshopped, then I'm gonna never match up to that because it's not even realistic. And we don't even realize that we're comparing ourselves to people that aren't realistic. They don't even look like that. Cindy Crawford even said, I don't even look like that.
Yeah.
So it's, that's huge. And we just, our brains have that automatic comparison, and then our brains are also wired for a negative bias. So we compare, and then we're saying, oh, we don't match up to that. And so I'm
Mhm.
this, and we make these agreements. And then the other thing that was, the other thing in my presentation, I do an exercise of what we like about our bodies. It'd be very common for you and I to sit down for dinner and then start talking about what we don't like about our bodies. And why is
Totally.
that normal?
Yeah.
Right? Like, why is that normal? Like, why can't I say, Laura, I love this about myself? And
Mhm.
you like, oh yeah, I love that about you too, and I love this about me. And like, well, why couldn't we have that positive building up conversation?
Yeah.
So I do an exercise where we we pair off, and then you have to say two things you like about your body, and then you have to say two things you like about the other person's body, and then you switch. But you have to say thank you when they say two things they like about your body. And so it was an interesting exercise, and I participated in it too. And several young girls told me that they liked my nose. And it was interesting because when I was 18, I had a boyfriend, and he said, "You're cute, but your nose is funky or weird or something like that." And so for some reason, I assigned him like the truth, and everyone else thought my nose was funky, and he was right, and everyone else thought this. And so I made this agreement. And so when these young girls, but I didn't even think about it, right? I didn't even think about it for 20, 30 years. These young girls are telling me they like my nose. And I wanted to say, yes, but it's funky, or it's got a ski jump or whatever. And I'm like, wait, I'm supposed to say thank you and like really take it in.
Yeah.
And so it really helped me rewire my brain. And I didn't really even realize I was holding on to this. And of course, when I photograph people, their vulnerabilities come out and they share these really hurtful things that they've held on to. Like one of my clients, a boy said to her in passing, "Oh, your hips are big." Well, of course, her hips are bigger than that guy's, but like
Right.
her hips are fine. Her hips
Yeah.
are normal, but for some reason, like she's agreed to that as the truth, and so she's held on to my hips are big. And it's
Mm.
so interesting these agreements that we make, and because you've looked at neuroplasticity, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And like we create these highways in our brains, like my nose is weird, and so anything that deters from that is hard, and so we got to create a new highway in our brain that my nose is fine to
Yes.
override that. But it takes a lot of work because look, I just said 20 to 30 years I've been harboring this falsehood in my head,
Mhm.
and so I have to make a conscious effort, every day when I look at myself in the mirror, when I jump in the shower, I get in the mirror and I'm like, and I'm nude and I'm like, okay, I like this, I like this, I like this. And I say these positive things to myself to try to rewire because it's, I feel like it's such a avalanche of negativity that comes toward us. And I've got to flip that script.
Yes. Oh, I absolutely love that. And for the moms who are listening who do have that, because we all have that thing about
Yeah.
ourselves, maybe it's more than one
Yeah.
thing, right? That
Right.
feature
Of course. Yes.
there's it's why is it always a boy? They're like I had the same thing. Like some boy in
Yeah.
I think it was seventh grade English class. I know his name.
Yeah.
His name, I'll call him. And he said
Yeah.
something about my nose too, but then I had a
Oh
boyfriend.
my gosh.
Like, why is it
Yeah.
that boys like pick something and say something, and why is that okay?
Right.
First of all, so like
Right.
boy moms, see if you can
Yes.
see if you can talk to your sons about this. But second,
Right.
even if that weren't the case, I'm sure it would still somehow come up.
Yes.
What I encourage, as far as the process of rewiring the brain, the neuroplasticity
Yes.
about is something I use in coaching is called the stop.
Mhm.
So the minute
Yeah.
I mean, you can actually do it intentionally so that you can train your
Mhm.
brain, but you can even just do it as you go casually. So the minute you start to feel that thought coming, because we all know, like, oh gosh, like, right. And the key is to stop it before the thought
Yes.
can, because we don't want to continue to
Okay.
make those
Yeah.
neural connections even stronger.
Right.
So then we'll
Yes.
like a pattern interrupt, which could be anything. You jump up, you turn around, you say something, you just do something that like stops the
Yeah.
thought. You know how like when you're
Yeah.
walking to the kitchen and then you're like, why am I in the kitchen?
Right. Right.
That's because it's a pattern interrupt, because we started walking and then all of a sudden our brain kind of went blank, and
Yes.
so there's all of a sudden this open space. And so, but then what we want to do is fill the open space
Mhm.
with the positive thought. And so we can train our brain,
Yes.
exactly what you said, but there's actually that, like, that's a technique that we use in coaching
Yes.
to like correct that thought. So then we want to make that
Mhm.
stronger. It's just like building that
Yeah.
muscle. You don't
Yeah.
just go to the gym one time and lift a weight and say you're strong, right?
Right. Right.
Constant. So it's a practice.
Exactly.
Really, it's a
Yeah.
self practice in self love, and I,
Right. Right.
yes, yeah, and I do that
Yeah.
too. And the other thing, for myself,
Yeah.
I do talk to myself because I've had 4 kids and I'm 47 years old. So what I
Mhm.
like, I've decided, like, why I'm not going to compare myself, well,
Yeah.
a to anybody, but
Right.
like the standard shouldn't be a 22-year-old woman who's never had children, right? Like
Right.
so then I realized I've had 4 babies come out of this body.
Right. Right.
I should just like embrace and love and realize,
Yeah.
wow, I'm so strong. My body's awesome. I did this amazing thing.
Amazing.
And,
Right.
and then to just embrace that, like, wow, look how awesome I am, or look how powerful I am, or
Yes.
all the things that go.
Yes. Yeah. And what do you say to women that say, "Oh, I don't want to get a big head. If I think like that, I'll get a big head."
Well,
Do you know what I'm trying to say?
yeah, but I've
Like
never
if
heard.
that instead of putting yourself down all the time,
Yeah.
you're building yourself up. And I found some women have been worried about,
Oh, really?
making, yeah. So what would you say to that?
Well, no one has ever said that to me. So I was like kind of surprised that a woman would even get to that level. It almost seems like we're impossible to fill up that much. But I think that's just a mindset. It's like you can
Yeah.
feel fantastic about yourself and then share your gifts with the world.
Mhm.
It's different, like the intention is different if you're doing it for the wrong
Mhm.
reasons. Like if you're just trying to feel
Yeah.
good about yourself in order to put other people down, like, or make
Right. No.
themselves, then
Right.
that's where the intention is wrong. But if the intention is to love
Yeah.
yourself and feel good about yourself
Mhm.
with the world, there is nothing wrong with that. I would just say that there's kind of a difference in the mindset about that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think some people are surrounded by people that try to keep them in check and not get too big for their britches.
Oh,
And
wow.
so they need to surround themselves with different people.
They do. That's what they need to do. Because I would say bring it.
Yeah.
Woman that was like, girl, you do it. Like you grow all
Right.
you want. You get as big as you want. Like we don't need
Right.
to keep ourselves small to make other people feel comfortable.
Exactly. Exactly. Thank
Yeah.
you for saying that. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say you just shoot for the stars. You go to the moon.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so so far this message has been fantastic about, kind of coming to the realization, kind of talking to ourselves, realizing how we can love our bodies. And so
Mhm.
and then workshops that you do for the girls. And so what would you say to moms who are listening about them or their daughters and being like the
Mhm.
positive role model for their daughter and
Mhm.
that self-love? Like what would your message be about that?
So my message would be that daughter or son, your kids are listening and they're sponges and they look to you for their guidance. Like my mother did not feel good about having her picture taken. So anytime a camera came forward, she would put her hand up so that someone could not take that picture. And then
Oh,
I found myself automatically doing that in my 20s. And I'm like, wait a minute, why am I doing that? And so, ever since I took those pictures of myself at 44, I've been really intentional about still taking self portraits so that I show up because a lot of us, excuse me, as the mothers, are the family record keepers. And so we take the pictures and we don't ever get in the shot,
mm, that's so
right?
true.
And so we need to be in the image. You need to get a tripod, set it on timer, and be in the image and show that you're just as important in that family picture at
Mhm.
then. And so, like, whatever you're doing and however you feel about yourself is going to come through. Even if you don't say it directly, they're going to pick up on it. So
Yeah.
being super conscious about that and, trying to fill your cup with positivity about what you look like and how you are and accepting yourself for how you look at this moment is the self-love that's needed.
Yeah. And for the woman who right now is feeling really low, and
Mhm.
it's always so much easier for a mom to do something for someone else or for her child
Yes.
than it is for
Yes.
herself. And so if we can say,
Right.
hey, you're loving yourself, and that is a gift for your child,
Yes.
then it's easy
Yes.
for them to be like, okay, fine, I'll do this thing that doesn't feel right to me, doesn't feel good, it doesn't feel comfortable, but I'll do it for them. And I'm going to be
Mhm.
and a role model to them about how to, because I don't want my child to grow up and feel the same way I do about myself. No one wants
Right.
their child.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And
You
no child is born wanting to grow up to feel icky about themselves and about their bodies and how they look. We all want to feel good. We all want to be recognized for our own unique beauty.
Mhm.
And when that's seen, it lights you up inside. You feel really affirmed.
Mhm. Mhm. And it's so funny how this whole age thing, because it is a little bit ironic where in the 20s, yeah, I look great, but I had
Yeah.
zero confidence at all. And now
Right. Right.
40, I have lots of flaws, but I'm like, I feel better than ever. And there's
Right.
something powerful about the mind having to make that
Yes.
decision to decide, okay,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. And even when I photograph 80 olds, good in front of the camera. It's not like I've got 100 wrinkles, so give it up. It's like, no, I want to look good. Like every single age, you want to look good and feel good about yourself.
Mhm. Mhm. That's actually such a beautiful point that as a society, our standard is so like focused on young, but beauty can
Yes.
be any age. I've seen some really beautiful
Yes.
like older women who just look fantastic,
Hmm.
and they're fascinating because you can tell, like, they just feel, you can tell they feel good about themselves. Like, it just
Yes.
flows,
Yeah.
goes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. For sure. For
So I love that
sure.
you brought yeah. Oh, sorry, you had something else.
No, I just also want to share like the consequences of to dive deeper into the consequences of not feeling good about yourself and the
Mhm.
decisions that relate to that. And if you're okay with that right now,
Yeah.
okay. Like from my personal experience, because I didn't feel good about myself or didn't find myself, see myself as attractive. I married my first husband who didn't see me as attractive either.
Mm,
And then I was in an emotionally abusive relationship.
mhm.
And so, that was okay because in my mind, I justified it to be okay because of I wasn't that great. Where
Right.
if I would have known that I am great just because I'm here and I'm a worthy human being because of that. And,
Mhm.
um, so yeah, I've made some poor choices in friendships. I've made poor choices in work relationships. I've stayed in work relationships longer than I should have, that weren't working and I was trying to force to work. And,
Mhm.
so it's a lot of things. And then, some people put off big decisions like, oh, I'll do that when I've lost 10 or 15 pounds. I'll do
Mm,
the photo shoot not until I've lost that weight. Like we hold that so dear, that number on the scale,
mm.
when no one else around us that truly loves us cares,
Right. Right.
so we put off things that are really important.
I love your story too because it just speaks to volumes as to the strength that you've developed, but like that boundary of, at the time with the ex-husband, you kind of just thought you were getting what you deserved. But I had a
Yeah.
feeling in your story, because I have a similar story, that at
Mm.
some way you just, even before you got to do your photo shoot,
Yeah.
before, you probably were like, wait a second, like something is
Yeah.
wrong here. And how
Right.
okay that, right? Like there probably had to be some
Yeah.
awakening, inner truth that this is wrong, what's
Yes.
happening. And then you had to set a boundary and say, I am not part of this in anymore. I can't be
Right. I'm out. Yes. Yes.
yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly. And my son helped me get there, sadly or fortunately, like I didn't want him to grow up in an abusive home and think that was normal. And
mm,
so I, exited. And, those are painful decisions and they take a lot of courage and they have lifelong consequences to them too. So it's better if you could just feel good about yourself and confident in the beginning and not fall into less than stellar relationships that should celebrate each other.
well, I appreciate you saying that just because that is kind of my, although I don't make it obvious that that's my core message, but that's my core motivation because that's
Okay.
my story. And so that is,
Okay.
yeah, that is why I'm so passionate about working. I mean, I work with teenage boys too, but teenage girls,
Yeah.
I can see myself in them. And I
Yes. Yes.
want them to go on that same path that I went on, where I ended up in an unhealthy relationship. And,
Hmm.
you know, there's always a reason for things. And now I feel really thankful that I did have that hard journey to go through.
Yes. Yeah.
It made me where I am now, to be confident enough to
Hmm.
have a voice to speak out and talk about
Yes.
these things. And, if
Yes.
married Prince Charming from day one, I probably would have never had a reason to talk about anything.
Right.
It would
Right.
have been something completely different. So I
Yes.
also love that. I also really love that you brought up boys, because so, I have
Hmm.
2 boys and 2 girls. So I get to see this as
Hmm.
well, like what it's like
Right.
to have both and how they feel about themselves and their body, and
Yes.
the way they treat it. So what's it been like
Yes.
having a son, and how do you kind of model that positive, image to him?
Yeah, that's a great question. So boys still have issues. Like no one is immune from not having issues because you're not muscular enough or you whatever. Excuse me. And so it's been an interesting journey because um there was one time that he really, got me right in the heart. Was I had just been in the ER for like 14 hours and I looked awful. I was in a lot of pain. and I came home and I needed assistance just to get to the bathroom.
Mm.
And he stopped me in the mirror and he's like, "Mom, look at you. Look in the mirror." I'm like, "I know I look awful." He's like, "No, Mom, you're beautiful." And so
Oh.
he like really like he heard what I was trying to say and like what I was trying to do, and like he would try to affirm me
Mm.
also, which was such a beautiful thing. And you know, I didn't always, it's not a straight, you know, shoot up when you decide to start loving yourself, you know, like you go forwards and backwards, and there's times that you don't feel good about yourself. And um you know, that's, I he saw that too. He saw that struggle where I didn't always feel good about myself.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
so, yeah, I wish it was a straight arrow, you know, a straight upward
Mhm.
arrow, and also in our entrepreneur, you know, journey. It's not, it's like this, right?
Well,
And
that's reality. Yeah, that's
right,
true.
that's reality. That's
Yeah.
true. And so, you know, and you know, saw him struggle, you know, somewhat with his body image. I don't think he had it as hard in school as the girls can treat each other, but you know, he was still had some being picked on and stuff. So
Mhm.
it's hard to you know, to always do it right. As you said, the hardest job in the world without a manual.
Yeah.
And you know, you're not always going to get it right, but I think, you know, in the end, he saw, he because he's 22 now, he saw what I was trying to do, and you know how important it is for him to understand himself and understand women too. And you know, I think that he's grown from it also.
Yeah. That what really stood out to me there is the learning he's getting the lesson for, even his future relationship that he might
Yes.
have with a
Yes.
significant other, and realizing
Yeah.
that for a woman, like how important this is. And maybe
Hmm.
someday he has his own kids. I don't know. I'm just, guessing, but maybe
Yeah.
he has a daughter. Who knows? And
Right. Right.
for
Right.
him to have that experience with you, to see like what would be so loving towards a woman, is to hear
Yes.
that affirmations from a man, because at the end of the day, we we want it from ourselves, but it's so nice to hear it from others as well, right? I
Right.
think
Yes.
that always helps. And I think it definitely depends on people's their internal dialogues. We call that meta programs, where how they're programmed in the world to
Yes.
filter the world. And so
Yes.
some people need more of the outside than others. I have
Hmm. Right.
I have one client that she just graduated with me. After they work with
Oh,
me, I say
good.
graduated, and I just love her because she's one that doesn't need a lot of the outside.
Uh-huh.
She is
Hmm.
so fun to work with because she's like, I don't care what people think. She's all
Yes.
about like her own, because it's the way our
Yeah.
brains are wired from the time we're young, the way we
Yes.
filter, delete, and distort information. And so,
Yes.
I think it is important to, and also the thing I teach, to parents is about the love languages, which is great for romantic
Yes.
partnerships, but it's also great
Right.
for your children. And so
Yes.
some need the words of affirmation more than others,
Yes.
right?
Right. Right. Yes. Good point. And then I don't know if you've read the book "Come as You Are"
No, I
by
haven't.
Dr. Oh my goodness, it's so good. But it's been scientifically proven that when we feel good about our bodies, we have better quality sex.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
Which makes sense, which makes total sense, right? But
Yeah,
like, yeah, I mean, sadly, there's been times where I've gained weight and I'm like, oh, I'll pass tonight because I feel fat. You know,
right.
like I gave up this pleasure and I didn't need to. You know, it was all on me to say yes or no because of the way I felt about myself.
Right. And isn't that crazy? And I don't want to pretend to know what I understand what goes on in a man's mind. But that's the one thing I don't know, but I've read,
Right. Yeah.
that that's not important to
That's
them.
not
They
important.
feel about yourself, but to them, it is really truly an emotional connection, as much as
Yes.
you might want to stereotype men as being
Yes.
superficial. They're really not. They're
No, they're not. Right.
emotional beings, and they really truly,
Yes.
especially in a really trusting, healthy relationship, that is such an emotional connection for them. And so,
Right.
I'm sure
Right.
it was just, he's like, oh, no, don't pass,
Right. Right. Exactly. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I can tell you it's true. Like the more and more I feel better about myself and the more I'm rewiring my brain, the better experiences I'm having in life. It's like, and some people may think this could be superficial, but it's like how you feel about yourself in here, it affects how you relate to outside in the world and show
Mhm.
up.
Right, right. It is so true, and that's why I love your work so much, because you really are taking the inner and the outer, and combining those, because there are some
Mhm.
who I feel like are really hardcore, that they are in denial of humanity and behaviors, that they say the outside doesn't matter, and it's like, well, yeah, but it matters, but it matters what you think of it. That's the part that matters, right?
Right. Right.
It's
Yes.
not the part that matters of how it measures to people. It's how you embrace that outside part, and how we project it.
Right.
Because think
Yes.
about, I even with physiology, like that's part of my work, is teaching, especially young girls. I love to work with like tweens. I do like 9 to 12. I
Yeah.
do camp every
Oh,
summer.
perfect.
And
Yes.
I teach about just posture, standing up straight,
Yes.
making eye
Yes.
contact, smiling, because they are
Yes.
always used to like transition. It's usually like right before middle school starts, and so
Yes.
always nervous about, oh, it's a new school and all these people I don't know. And I said,
Right.
okay, so look at me. How do I look when I'm like this? And they're like,
Right.
oh, you look nervous or anxious or insecure or whatever. And I'm like, okay, how do I look
Right.
like this? And they're like, oh,
Right.
you look ready to go. You look friendly. You look happy. And it's just, what did I change? All I changed was my body. That is
Right.
the only thing I changed.
Yes.
My physicality
Right.
is where my head is
Yes.
pointed and what my facial muscles are doing, right? And so it's
Yes.
like there's so much that we can change, even though, yeah, maybe I can't change the features of myself, but I can change
Yeah.
what I do with them, right?
Right. Yes, absolutely. And again, it's all perspective and how you
Mhm,
feel and how that shows up. So when I do that exercise, I tell them you have to say a body part. You have to compliment a body part.
mhm.
And a lot of people give me resistance because they think that I should do something on their personality. They're kind, they're sweet or whatever. I'm like, no, it has to be your body part. And there was one girl that went through the program, and it's only like an hour and a half talk that I give, but before, because she wrote me afterwards, before she would get dressed only in the dark, and she was an eighth grader and she had your typical thin eighth grade body, right? She would get dressed in the dark so she could not see herself in the mirror.
Mm.
She could not look at herself. And
Oh.
then after the talk, then she was able to get dressed in the light like a normal person.
Oh.
And but like what a transformation, right? Like if
Mhm.
we just change that perspective, and it can just be a little bit each day. You don't have to go from 0 to 100, and like we talked about, it's going to be like this, you're going to go backwards and forwards, but
Mhm.
just like lean into it, try to do something every day. Compliment yourself. There's something you like about yourself, compliment
Yeah.
that in the mirror, and then add it. And give yourself the positive doubt, give how you say that, give the benefit of the doubt, and just like think positive about yourself. Like you're not this awful lazy person who doesn't get anything done. You're this amazing person that gets done a lot of things done that you're not giving yourself credit for, and you're doing the best you can, and so is everyone else.
Yeah. Yes. So my brain went to the mom of that eighth grade girl, and I thought,
Yes.
I mean, if she had known that that's what her daughter was
Hmm.
doing, I can imagine she
Hmm.
would feel pretty devastated. And so what I'm thinking
Yeah.
is, what could she have done differently to prevent her daughter from even getting to that point in the first place?
Hmm.
Um, because there is probably, it's great that she's evolved now, but like that put her in probably kind of a dark place for a little while, and that
Yes.
just breaks my heart. And so
Yes. Yes.
I'm thinking like, what we talked about modeling, and I know one thing that I teach moms. Well, actually, I
Hmm.
don't actively teach this, but if somebody were to ask me, this is what I would say.
Yes.
My
Okay.
answer. I don't go specific on this area, but I, in my own family, I don't, because this is how I was raised. My mom never once talked about calories. She never talked about dieting. My mom never talked about
Hmm.
her body. She never kept sweets out of the house. Like they weren't illicit. Like we were
Hmm.
allowed to have, she made like homemade chocolate chip
Hmm.
cookies. It wasn't like candy and
Yum.
stuff. We were
Right.
allowed to have dessert. Like there was nothing that
Yeah.
was forbidden. And to
Yeah.
me, that was like an important part of how I was raised because
Yeah.
I've had some girls come to my house as like my daughter's friends. And there was one girl who was never allowed to eat bread in her house. So then
Oh no.
yeah. So then and I think there was a reason thing there. Like I think there was a medical thing. It wasn't like she was just trying to get her daughter
Okay.
to diet or something. But
Yeah.
she wasn't allowed to eat bread. So then she came to my house and she was like, well, I didn't know this. So I wouldn't have said,
Oh yeah.
but she's like, "Can I have bread and butter?" And I was like, "Sure, I don't care." But I didn't know that
Right.
but I found out later that like she wasn't allowed to have that at her house because I was thinking
Oh wow.
a request for a snack. I'm like, "Oh yeah."
Right.
And so that's what I found interesting is like the moms, and again, for dietary allergy reasons, totally makes sense. Like I even
Yes.
I have a
Yes.
gluten intolerance, I have a
Me
dairy
too.
intolerance.
Yeah.
So right, I don't eat those
Yeah.
things, but I have them for my kids. And so
Yeah.
I find that like restricting is actually kind of causes
Yes.
reverse effect, especially in kids.
Yes. Yes.
So again, like I wasn't necessarily going into diet, but like that sends the message that like this is so bad that you like we can't have in the house because you'll be tempted and right. And I get you
Right.
have your house full of junk food, but at the same time, what
Right.
happens to those kids is when they don't have it, they go somewhere else, especially as teenagers,
Yep.
and all of a sudden they're
Yes.
like, "Oh my gosh, this is all the stuff I haven't been allowed to have my whole life," and they start
Right. Yes.
crazy. Like they can't moderate themselves because they
Yes.
on that scale earlier. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right. For
Yeah.
sure. That's a
Yeah.
really good point. I'm so glad you brought that up.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, yeah. And then the bigger point here was just about moms and modeling. And as far
Mhm.
as, my mom not having talked about that stuff probably did the biggest great service for me because I never
Yes.
really had, I mean, I wouldn't say I had, I don't think I had any abnormal body image issues growing up because I just didn't think
Mhm.
about it that much. Like I was in
Right.
athletics and it wasn't on my
Yes.
radar.
Right.
But there's the moms who they can't help themselves and they're like, "Oh, I feel fat," or "I'm on a diet," or "I'm this," and right, and they're just
Right.
spewing this energy out
Right.
in the field of the home, and the girls or the boys hear that, and
Yes.
just sending a really not great signal or message.
Right.
What are your thoughts about that?
I think that they need to understand the impact. Like, I think they're just talking to themselves, but it's making such a deep impact on everyone around them, their
Mhm.
girlfriends, their husband, their kids. And if they really understood that negative ripple effect, they wouldn't do it because it's so hurting themselves. Like, we have like over 1 trillion cells, and your body listens to you and how you feel about it too.
Mhm. Mhm.
And like, it just can cause other health issues that you don't want to have. And
That's
then you're also making a psychological impact on everyone else. Like, are you going to feel good about sharing things, positive things about you and how you feel about your body and what you're excited about? And I mean, like, we have all these stages that we go through that you know, before pregnancy, multiple pregnancies, menopause, like all that needs to be celebrated. Like, we're
Mhm.
lucky to still be alive. I had one woman that I tried to photograph, and I'm like, if we're above 6 feet, and trying to get her to lighten up, and she's like, I don't know if that's a good thing. And just like, she was so upset about like how she looked, and
Oh.
it just like affected everything that she did.
Mm.
And like, I wish that we would celebrate more like this place that we're at, instead of focusing on the wrinkles that we have. And it's life, man. This is part of the journey. Our cells don't reproduce like they used to and the same quality they reproduced before. And that's okay. That's part of the journey.
Yeah, yeah. I love so much that you bring the science into it because I'm a huge science nerd, and that's
Yeah,
part of my
good.
yes. Oh, yeah. Part of my studies that all I've done is, a lot of health and wellness stuff, and a lot of,
Yeah.
I love learning about that, like the epigenetics, like you said. Like there are
Yes.
certain
Yes.
in our DNA, there's certain genes that are dormant and they're like a light switch. They can switch on or switch
Yes.
off depending on our
Yes.
surroundings, but even including our thoughts. So if we're having a
Yes.
lot of negative thoughts and it's very stressful and we're activating a lot of cortisol in our body and all sorts of like, we have a
Yes.
or
Right.
even eating bad and we can develop like,
Yeah.
they say leaky gut, like an inflamed gut,
Mhm.
that can trigger
Yes.
things. So it's like you're
Yeah.
actually like harming yourself by having
Yes.
negative thoughts and
Yes.
feelings yourself. And so then you're
Right.
actually creating more problems, right? So
Right,
you like,
you are. You
ooh,
are. And then
yeah.
that's like I realized for so long I was at war with my body. Instead
Mm,
of like loving your body does so much. You're talking about science, like it does so much that it automatically does, and we don't realize it. We become at war with our body, and it's sad because you don't want to come to this earth like, okay, you're going to come to this earth and you're going to be at war with your body the whole time. It's like,
yeah.
what? I don't want to come here if I'm going to do that, but that's what we do.
It sounds exhausting and it's very depleting of your
Yes.
energy and all those like everything is kind of just I also learn a lot about the autonomic nervous system and the
Yes.
parasympathetic system. And so
Yes.
that's the equivalent of hitting the gas and the brakes on your car at the same time or just like really
Yes.
rapid fire like this. It's like
Yeah.
totally wasting the fuel. It's not good for the engine.
Yes.
It's like causing damage.
Right.
Whereas if we drive really smoothly with the gas and the brake, it's so much healthier.
Yes.
And so that's like
Yes.
being that war. And so just kind of finding peace. And I think that's like our final message for today is just finding peace and love,
Mhm.
I would say, with our
Mhm.
bodies and how we feel. Does that resonate with you?
It does, and I think being kind to yourself is, like, the most important thing, and then you'll be kind to others, is what I would
Mm,
add.
okay,
Be
that's the
kind to
perfect.
yourself.
Yeah, be kind to yourself, and then it'll radiate out to others.
Yep.
I think that's
Mhm.
the perfect way to wrap up our show. And so, Kim, how can people help you going forward? Because what's so cool about you is you're actually on the road. You're traveling
Mhm.
photographer, so you are all over the country, and people might want
Yes.
to use your services. So, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
So my, email is kim@kimbrundage.com, and I'm actually, offering on Saturday, April 6th, a mother-daughter talk on body image and confidence. So it's limited to 16 people, and I'm happy to share that link. And hopefully, we'll have some great discussions. We've never done a mother daughter discussion before, but I thought
Mhm.
that might be a new thing to try because they both influence each other.
Yes. Oh, 100%. Okay. And your
Yes,
website is kimbrundage.com.
kimbrundage.com.
Kim Brundage Photography. So great. Well,
Hmm.
this has been a wonderful talk. I thank you so much for
Thank
your time. I can't
you.
thank you enough. So this show can be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check spanglishworld.ca for all news and programming. Spanglish World, watch it, read it, hear it, download it, live it. All right. Bye-bye, everyone.